This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Rabbi said good morning.
Good morning.
Yom HaShlishi.
What happened is Yom
Shab Parshas Mishpatim. We start Parshas Mishpatim. Parshas Mishpatim is the first Parsha after the Nesinas HaTorah, after the giving of the Luchos. So we would expect Parshas Mishpatim to begin with a bang, with a blast. We would expect Hashem to give us, as the first mitzvah in the Torah, a real whopper, something really important. Maybe start off the Torah with the mitzvah of Limud Torah, maybe Kriya Shema. No, what is the very first mitzvah that is taught after the giving of the Luchos? Kisikne Eved Ivri. When you buy a Jewish slave, right? What? That's the first mitzvah taught after Hashem gives us the Torah? That's the most important mitzvah? That's the real burst your bubble. That we're expecting a real big mitzvah. And Hashem tells us, by the way, you buy a Jewish slave, let him go after 6 years. And if he wants to stay after the 7th year, you bring the heir to the door. And like they used to do in the principal's office, when I was a kid. And they drill a hole in the ear. So, this is the first mitzvah taught. This is the first mitzvah taught after the Torah is given. So Ramban, in the beginning of the Parsha, he addresses this question. Why is this the first mitzvah taught to Klal Yisrael? Kisikne Eved Ivri. Hischil HaMishpat HaRishayin Be'Eved Ivri. The Torah begins with the first law, the law of the Eved Ivri. Because the mitzvah of Eved Ivri, in fact, is a very fundamental mitzvah. Because the fact that the Eved goes free in the 7th year helps us remember Yitzias Mitzrayim. Hanizkar b'dibar harishon, because Yitzias Mitzrayim was mentioned in the first of the 10 commandments. The first of the 10 commandments is Anochi Hashem Elokecha, Asher hotzeisecha me'eretz Mitzrayim. So to speak, corresponding to that first mitzvah, Hashem gives us the mitzvah of Eved Ivri. Like the Eved Ivri itself is Zeichel Yitzias Mitzrayim. K'may she'amar boi, v'zacharta ki Eved ha'yisa b'Mitzrayim, v'yivtecha Hashem Elokecha, al kein anochi mitzavcha es hadavar hazeh hayom. And Eved Ivri is also Zeichel L'Maseh Bereishis. How is it Zeichel L'Maseh Bereishis? Because Shabbos, it's like Shabbos. Ki Hashana Hashvius LaEved. The 7th year of the Eved is Shabbos and Mimlechas Adonov, is a rest from the work of his master, just like the 7th day of the week. And Yovel is also the 7th sabbatical cycle. So therefore Eved Ivri is Zeicher L'Yitzias Mitzrayim. It's Zeicher L'Maaseh Bereishis. So there is no mitzvah really that encapsulates the fundamental principles like Eved Ivri. So therefore Eved Ivri was selected to be the very first mitzvah given to Klal Yisrael. So, although these are the words of the Ramban, nevertheless, perhaps we could explain a little bit more why Eved Ivri was selected to be the very, very first mitzvah taught to Klal Yisrael. Does that sit well with you? That the reason why Eved Ivri was the first mitzvah taught to Klal Yisrael, because it encapsulates Zeichel L'Maseh Bereishis, Zeichel L'Yitzias Mitzrayim. Do we really feel it's such a fundamental mitzvah? Well, it's not a mitzvah that really applies l'dairos, because after all, Eved Ivri only applies when Yovel applies. Certainly, Eved Ivri was not applicable until the Torah was given. So why is this such a fundamental mitzvah that Hashem is teaching Klal Yisrael that V'yela Mishpatim Asher Tasim L'fneim? What's the first mitzvah? The first mitzvah is Kisikne Eved Ivri. Okay, Rabbi say, Herz Chaim, listen to this. Look in the Gemara in Kedushin, Chav Beis Amud Beis. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai Hayadorish es hamikra hazeh kemin chaymer. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai explained this pasuk like a jewel. Ma nishtana oizen mikol ivarim shebaguf. Why do we drill the guy's ear? Drill the guy's toe, his finger, his nose. Why the guy's ear? Why do we drill the guy's ear? All the ivarim, there are 248 ivarim. Why the ear? Says Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Oizen sheshama koili al Har Sinai, the ear that heard my voice on Har Sinai. B'shasha amarti, when I said, Ki li b'nei Yisrael avadim, that the b'nei Yisrael are my avadim. Avadim, v'lo avadim la'avadim. They're my slaves, but they're not the slaves of other slaves. In other words, every Jew is a slave. So if you buy a slave, you're saying, that, no, I'm not a slave to God, I'm a slave to another human being. But that is violating the fundamental statement that we're slaves of God and not slaves of other human beings. And this guy went, and he bought a master for himself, but I'm your master. So therefore he needs to have his ear auled. Says Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, why are we drilling a hole in the ear? Because the ear was supposed to have heard on Har Sinai that the Bnei Yisrael are my slaves, and this guy made himself a slave to a human being.
But the ear also heard the Keep Shabbos.
So Rav Shlomo is asking a very good, a Gavaldig Akasha. So a guy who steals, we should also drill his ear. Because his ear heard on Har Sinai, don't steal. Yeah. And a guy who doesn't honor his father and mother, also we should drill his ear. Because his ear, and a guy who wears shatnez, we should also drill his ear. And a guy who insults somebody, he also heard. Like Son Rishas HaMisai. And anyone who violates any of the 613, we should drill his ear. Why? Because he missed the boat on Har Sinai. And yet we know the only thing we drill the ear for is Kili b'nei Yisrael avadim. What? That's the only mitzvah in the Torah?
No, but
it's not even a mitzvah. It's not even the 613. So what are we drilling his ear?
By choosing to be an Eved, he's not over on anything.
Exactly. There's no lav. It's just there's one pasuk in the Torah that teaches us a Jewish principle that you have to be a slave of God and not a human being. So ask the Marsham on Taisus and Kedushin Chavez and Beis. Look at number 3. Kasha ahad kamar oizen sheshama. Why don't we say the same thing on other mitzvahs? A guy who eats seafood for supper, we should drill his ear. He heard on Har Sinai, about the shak, don't defile yourself.
It's kosher seafood.
What?
Stop it.
Okay.
It's
Good.
kosher seafood.
Taka, good kasha.
Good kasha.
Okay.
Very good kasha.
Let's take, so far we have 2 questions. Why is the first mitzvah taught to Klal Yisrael? What? Kisikne Eved Ivri, let him go after 6 years. Number 2, why is the Gemara saying that a guy who sells himself as an Eved, we have to drill his ear, he violating Kili b'nei Yisrael avadim. I mean, there are a lot of things in the Torah. It's a big Torah out there. There are not 613 things to drill somebody's ear for. Okay. The Gemara continues in Masechta Kedushin. Why do we drill the ear by the door and the doorpost? Maybe we should bring it to the Svarim Shrank. He's not learning enough. We should bring it to the Stender. Should bring it to, I don't know.
Take him to the ear doctor.
Yeah? Take him to the shul. No, the door. Says the Gemara. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Deles u'mezuzah, the door and the doorpost. Shahayu Eidim Mitzrayim. They were witnesses in Egypt. B'shasha pasachti ala mashkoif. When I jumped over the lintel of al shtei mezuzah and 2 doorposts. V'amarti, and I said, Ki li b'nei Yisrael avadim. The b'nei Yisrael are my avadim. V'lo avadim la'avadim, and not slaves of slaves. V'hoit seisa me'av d'sucheros, and I took them out from slavery to freedom. The halach said, this guy went. V'kana adayin le'atzman, he bought a master. Yeratza b'fneim. He should be awed before the 2 witnesses that heard God say, Kili b'nei Yisrael avadim.
We were all at Har Sinai, but we were not all at Mishpatim.
We were all at Har Sinai, but we were not all at Yetzias Mitzrayim.
Yeah, nice.
That's true.
Yeah, it's good kasha.
That's true.
Good kasha.
That's true.
Good kasha. How are we all at Har Sinai?
All our Hashems were at Har Sinai.
All the Shemas.
Well, you can make the case that if Hashem would not have saved your ancestor in Mitzrayim, we would not be here.
That's true.
Okay, good point though. Maybe we'll be able to answer it. But I have a very simple question on this Gemara.
I have another question.
Yeah.
But in the end of the day, the Adon also is the Eved of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so what is the nafkamina? We're all Avadim. I'm his Eved, but he is
the Adon is also doing something wrong. You're saying the master is also doing something wrong?
No, I mean, if I'm his Eved, but the Adon is the Eved of HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
You're an Eved to God, but now you're an Eved to an Eved. You're an Eved to an Eved. Instead of being an Eved directly to God, you're an Eved to an Eved. So I have one simple question on this Gemara. The Gemara is saying that why does the master drill the hole of the Eved? Because the Eved heard Hashem say in Mitzrayim, when Hashem jumped over the Jewish doorposts, Ki li b'nei Yisrael avadim. What in the world is the Gemara talking about? When Hashem jumped over our doors, He said, "Hey, you, Yankel, Ki li b'nei Yisrael avadim." And then He jumped over Beryl and said, "Hey, Beryl, Ki li b'nei Yisrael avadim." did Hashem say those words in Mitzrayim?
It's up in the Chumash.
I don't know. I wasn't there. But the Gemara is saying Hashem said those words. Yeah, but all I know is that this pasuk appears in the Chumash. You know what Parsha this pasuk appears in? In Parshas Bahar. Look what the pasuk says in number 5. Ki li b'nei Yisrael avadim. To me, the b'nei Yisrael are slaves. Avadai heim, they're my slaves. Asher hoitzeisi oisa me'eretz Mitzrayim. Ani Hashem lekechem. This pasuk in Parshas Bahar, one thing I know, it was said in Parshas Bahar. It wasn't said in Parshas Bay. So our Chazal saying that even though this pasuk appears in Parshas Bahar, you should know Hashem already said it once upon a time. When? When he jumped over Yankel's house. Yankel! Ki li b'nei Yisrael avadim. Is that what the Gemara means? Is the Gemara saying that a baskol came out as Hashem was jumping over the house? So we just thought Hashem jumped over. And now the Gemara is saying, by the way, that pasuk in Bahar, Hashem went on the microphone and he said, right? Ki li b'nei Yisrael avadim, even in Mitzrayim. That's what the Gemara means? How do Chazal know that Hashem said that? I mean, I guess Chazal know Misinai. But is that what the Chazal mean? That Hashem said the words Ki li b'nei Yisrael avadim in Mitzrayim? That's not what the Chumash says. The Chumash says it's part of Torah's Koyanim. It's the end of Sefer Vayikra. Chazal mean, no, really Hashem already said it in Mitzrayim? I mean, how do you understand this Chazal? We learn in our whole lives that Chazal are saying when Hashem jumped over the Jewish houses, he said Ki li b'nei Yisrael avadim. But the Torah doesn't report it that way. I mean, is this the case where it's not in the Torah Shebechsav, it's Torah Shebal Pez, telling me really this pasuk was said earlier? Okay. Then there's a wonderful sefer, doesn't have any haskamas, but doesn't need any haskamas. It's called Sefer Yirmiyahu. Okay? It's a very good sefer. Sefer Yirmiyahu. Perek Lamed Daled. Perek Lamed Daled, pasuk Yud Beis. Okay? You should try opening it sometime. Perek Lamed Daled. It says, Vayi Dvar Hashem El Yirmiyahu Me'es Hashem Leimah. The word of Hashem came to Yirmiyahu. Kayamar Hashem Lekei Yisrael. So says Hashem. Now, this is a case where the Navi is telling me something that happened in Mitzrayim that the Chumash doesn't report. We have other instances of this, like in Sefer Yecheskel, where the Navi Yecheskel tells us about a nevuah that Aaron HaKoyin had in Mitzrayim that the Chumash doesn't tell us about. So here, the Navi Yirmiyah is saying, so says Hashem, Anoichi karati brisas avaseichem. I have sealed a covenant. I sealed a covenant with your forefathers. B'yom hoitzi oisa me'eretz Mitzrayim mibeis avadim leimar. On the day I took them out of Mitzrayim. Now you look in your Chumash, we don't find that God made any covenant with the Jewish people the day He took us out of Mitzrayim. And the Navi Yirmiyah is saying that the day He took us out of Mitzrayim, He made a deal with us. He struck a deal. What was the covenant? He said the following. Mi kates sheva shanim, at the end of 7 years, tishalchu ishes achiv, each man should send forth his brother, ha'ivri, the Jew, asher yimachalecha, who will be sold to you, va'avadcha shanim, and work for you for 6 years, b'shilachte chavshi me'imach, and you should send him free. And you should know, says the Navi Yirmiyah, the Jewish people didn't listen. V'lo shamu avoseichem elai. Your forefathers did not listen. They didn't turn their ear. And now you today, Yirmiyah is telling the people of his generation, you repented, you did tshuva, and you did that which is just in my eyes, to call freedom. In other words, you, my dear generation, you have freed your Jewish slaves. And you made a new covenant, Babayis, through the Beis HaMikdash, Asher Nikra Shmi Allah. You hear what? Herzachayim. Yirmiyah is telling the people, you should know, the day you left Mitzrayim, even though I'm just reminding you of a fact, that Hashem came down to Klal Yisrael, said, Klal Yisrael, here's the deal. You are ready for the deal? No Torah, no Shabbos, no nothing, no bris. There was one thing you need to keep. Free your Jewish slaves. So here, the Jews are wearing their begadim aving avadim. They just worked for 210 years. Slaves? They don't have any slaves. They've been slaves. Hashem says, I mean, you can imagine, the Jewish people are looking at Hashem, when we have slaves? We were just working for 210 years. All we have is matzah. You're telling me when we have enough money to have slaves, we should let the slaves go free after 6 years? They're saying, wait, what? Well, where did this come from? And yet, as irrelevant as it may have seemed, The Navi Yirmiyah is saying on the day Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, Hashem struck a deal, no mitzvahs, no Torah, free your Jewish slaves. Okay, it doesn't say this anywhere in the Chumash. This is what the Navi Yirmiyah is telling us. And the Jews didn't listen, and in the generation of Yirmiyah they did listen, they did tshuva, but, says Yirmiyah, you relented, and you gave in to the Yetzer Hara, and now you too are not freeing your Jewish slaves. Listen to this. Batashuvu, you relented. Batachalalu Hashemi, you desecrated my name. Batashivu ishes avdai ve'ishes shivchasai, you returned your slaves. You took them back. You took back your female slaves. Asher shilachtem chavshim lenafshim, that you had sent forth. Batichbeshu oisam, and you conquered them. In other words, Yirmiyah is saying, you too have failed where the Jewish people who left Mitzrayim failed. Says Yirmiyah, you know why Hashem is going to send you into Golos and destroy the Beis HaMikdash? Because you kept your cleaning guy in the 7th year. Your cleaning lady, your cleaning guy, who was a Jew, you didn't free them. L'chein koyamar Hashem. Atem lo shemata meila, you didn't listen to me. Likroi derar, to call freedom. Ish liachev, each man to his brother. The ish re'eo, and each man to his friend. Hineni karei lachem derar no Hashem. I will proclaim freedom to the sword, to the plague, to hunger, and I will create terror for you. And I will make the men who violate my covenant, who did not fulfill my bris, those men who walked between the two parts of the calf, which is what you usually do when you make a bris. You split you split a calf into two, and you walk in between to show the validity of the deal. So therefore, says God, I'm going to allow them to be murdered. I will let the birds eat their flesh. I'll let the animals consume their meat. Says Rebbeinu Shalom. You know why the Beis HaMikdash is going to be destroyed? You know why the Jewish people will be murdered, massacred, utterly devastated? Because they didn't free their Jewish slaves. So we're learning a lot of very interesting things. We always think that on the night of Yetzias Mitzrayim, Hashem says, Klal Yisrael, Karban Pesach, Bris Milah. So they bring the Pesach, they bring the Milah, and they go free. No. Says the Navi Yirmiyah, you missed the main thing. Says the battery is low. You missed the main thing that is happening in the night of Yetzias Mitzrayim. Right? You ask a Jew, take a poll on the street. What was the main thing that happened the night of the 15th? Karban Pesach, Bris Milah, Matzah, Mar. No. All of those things were just mitzvahs. But there's one thing that God made a bris with Klal Yisrael for. You know what the bris was? Free your Jewish slaves. What? He made a bris, free your Jewish slaves? First of all, the Jews don't have any slaves. I can guarantee you, the Jews didn't have any slaves. And anyway, the mitzvah of freeing them, maybe they did. Maybe the ones who were free had slaves. But you can imagine that, slavery, Jews owning Jewish slaves was probably not the most prevalent thing at that time. And anyway, the mitzvah of Shemitah is not noigeya until they get the Torah. So, Hashem didn't tell them about tefillin before the Torah was given. Hashem didn't tell them about Kriya Shema before the Torah was given. Hashem didn't tell them about eating kosher food. So why is Hashem telling them about freeing their Jewish slaves? In other words, what's the main thing that our relationship between Hashem and Klal Yisrael is dependent on? It's dependent on freeing your Jewish slaves. Right? If you want to know, what holds Knesset Yisrael and Rebbeinu Shalom together? The mitzvah of freeing Jewish slaves. Why is that such a fundamental mitzvah that Hashem couldn't wait to give to us with the rest of the Torah? Hashem had to give it to us the day we left Mitzrayim. And it's so important that why is Churban Beis HaMikdash happening? Why are Jews being murdered and massacred? Because they don't free their Jewish slaves? That's so important. Take a look in Rav Chaim Shmulevitz. Look at number 7. He quotes the pasuk Vayidaber Hashem al Moshe ve'al Aaron Vayitzavim al Bnei Yisrael. Quotes Yerushalmi Masechta Rosh Hashanah. Amar Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak. What did Hashem command the Bnei Yisrael? The mitzvah of Shiluach Avadim. And the mitzvah of Shiluach Avadim, sending forth the Jewish slaves. And in fact, he quotes the Navi Yirmiyah, Lamed Dal, Lamed Gimel, that the day we left Mitzrayim, Hashem not only gave us this mitzvah, He made a bris. Ask Reb Chaim Shmulevitz. Next paragraph, Yeshel his boinein ma tam netztavo b'mitzvah zu ba'isashim. Why is Rebbeinu Shalom giving us this mitzvah at this time? Harein mitzvahs evet ivri noiheges el v'zman hayovel. There is no evet ivri. You can't even own an evet ivri if there's no yovel. There's no yovel in the midbar. There's certainly no yovel in before the Torah was given. Also, we find in Yerushalmi that Klal Yisrael was only punished because they did not free their Jewish slaves, and in fact, that's what we read in Sefer Yirmiyahu. Next paragraph, Misbar Min Aksuvim, Kikol Gzeras Hagolos. The entire decree of exile, Hoisa Oynesh, was a punishment al Shabitlu Mitzvazu. I mean, why is this mitzvah so important? It's only a mitzvah saseh. It's only a mitzvah saseh. If somebody doesn't fulfill a mitzvah saseh, there's no punishment given. Only be'idin rischa, only at a time that Hashem is angry, He'll punish for failure of violating a mitzvah saseh. And yet it seems, from all that we're learning, that what is the first mitzvah God taught us when He gave us the Torah? Ve'ela Mishpatim ki sikna, right? Eila Mishpatim ki sikna evet ivri. What is the bris that God made with us when He took us out of Mitzrayim? Free your Jewish slaves. Why did we go into Golos? Why was it? We didn't free our Jewish slaves. I mean, what's the big deal? What is the big deal? It says in Chaim Shulevitz, V'hi gufa tzarch bir, last two lines, Ma'chizik yesh al yidei, hatzivoy b'shas yitzias Mitzrayim. Why did Hashem have to give the extra strength by commanding when we left Mitzrayim? Why wasn't it sufficient just to give us the mitzvah with the rest of the 613? Point out something very interesting in Masechta Antaisis and Masechta Kedushin, Daf Chaf Beis Amud Beis. What tool do we use to drill the hole in the ear? What tool? A martseya, an awl. A martseya, an awl.
Carpenter's tool.
First of all, nobody even knows what an awl is. The only reason people know what an awl is because they saw the stone translation of the word martseya. If not for the stone translation, no one would have ever heard the word awl. They would think awl. Awl is a type of detergent. What? What?
An awl is a tool that's white like a nail, and it's not drilling.
Okay, you bang it in. Okay, fine. Right. They didn't have drills yet. Okay.
Let's start to make the hole.
But still, use a nail, use a masmer, use a peg. Why a martzeh? I mean, this is a very unique word. I don't think you find it anywhere else other than in relation to the Evet Ivri. Do you find the word martzeh anywhere else in Chamisha Chumshei Torah? I don't think so. In the Mishkan, they're pegging, they're knocking. You don't find the word martzeh. It's unique. It's unique to the Evet Ivri. Why? Says Taisus. The word martzeh, mem is 40, reish is 200, tzadi is 90, ayin is 70. How much is that? 400. Why 400? Says Taisus yesh b'medrash the martzeh b'gematria daled meo shana. Lefi shahayu Yisrael avadim arba meo shana. Klal Yisrael was in Mitzrayim 400 years. V'go'al HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and God redeemed us. V'halach zeh, and this guy went. V'kana adain liatzma, and he acquired a master. Lefikach yirtza b'martzeh ha'ilakach. Therefore, we need to stick into his ear the awl, which has a gematria of 400. Martzeh. Now, as if to say that this guy who's buying the master, he's somehow going against the whole 400 years of Mitzrayim. He's somehow contravening the whole purpose of being in Mitzrayim and being taken out.
400, there was 210.
Okay, 210, but 400 from the birth of Yitzchak. Okay? So how in the world, this guy, he's buying an Adan for himself. Fine. So instead of being a slave directly to Hashem, he's a slave to another. But how is this going against the whole purpose of Yetzias Mitzrayim? So we come to one of my favorite comments of the Shlah HaKadosh. Shlah is found in Parshas Lech Lecha. And the Shlah asks a very important question. Shlah asks, Klal Yisrael is in Mitzrayim 400 years, 210 years. we fall to Mem Teshari Tama. We fall to the lowest level. Had we been there a moment longer, we would have fallen to the point of no return.
Wow.
Of what benefit was that to Klal Yisrael? Hashem wanted to punish us? I mean, that was a very dangerous punishment. We mamish sunk to the lowest of the low. Was there anything constructive that Klal Yisrael got out of being in Mitzrayim? If Hashem wants to make miracles, so put us in danger for a day, for an hour, and save us. What do you need 400 years, or even 210 years? What's the purpose of being in Mitzrayim for so long? After all, look what it did to our natural makeup. Our natural makeup, our national makeup. The Rambam says, had we been there a moment longer, we would have lost all of the emunah that Avraham Avinu planted within our hearts. Says the Shlah HaKadosh, more important than anything else, more important than the emunah, more important than the ruchnias and the madrega, is Hashem is about to give us Taryag Mitzvah, 613. There's only one way to keep 613 mitzvahs. If Hashem is telling you what you could eat and not eat, where you could go and not go, what you could do and not do, what you could hear and not hear, what you could look at and not look at. If Hashem's giving you a body of regulations that govern every single activity of the human being, how would it be humanly possible for anyone to receive such a thing? I mean, going from complete freedom. Imagine life without a Torah, life with a Torah. Without a Torah, do whatever you want. Any day of the week, eat whatever you want, look at whatever you want, listen to whatever. No discipline, no harness. There's only one way for a human being to accept the Torah. You know what the prerequisite is? You have to know how to be an Eved. You have to know how to be a slave. If you don't know how to be a slave, if you don't know how to subjugate yourself to a master, there's no such thing as mitzvahs. You can't be makah. Yeah, of course I'm gonna keep Shabbos, but at this weekend it's a special weekend. I got to go a little early, so I know I'm not supposed to look, but I want this. I want to do this. I want to look at this. I want to hear this. I want to go this. You can't keep mitzvahs unless a person is able to say, I have a master who tells me what to do, and I can't do what I want. I can't do what I want. So Rebbe Shalom said, you want to learn how to become an Eved? I'm going to give you 400 years of Eved school. Eved 101. You're going to be a slave and you're going to acquire the midah necessary to be makabel the Torah. You're going to follow Mem Teshari Tama, and halalu oivdei avodah zara, halalu oivdei avodah zara, and you're going to be mevatel bris milah, and you're going to be eiroim be'eria. Doesn't matter, because if you can't be an Eved, all is lost.
How about freedom of choice, Rabbi?
Yeah, you have freedom to choose, but you better choose the right thing, right? You have freedom. You do have freedom, but you have to make the right choices. So, what is the purpose of Mitzrayim? Listen to this: to learn how to be an Eved, so you can be transitioned from being Avdei Paroi into being Avdei Hashem. It was Eved training. That is why the Rebbe Shalom says, Ki li b'nei Yisrael avadim. B'nei Yisrael are my avadim. Avadai heim. They're my avadim asher hoitzeisi oisa me'eretz Mitzrayim. And how does Hashem introduce himself? Anoichi Hashem Elokecha asher hoitzeisicha me'eretz Mitzrayim. I took you out of Mitzrayim. What do you think you were doing there? Think you're on vacation over there? You were chafshi. You were avadim there. And I just transitioned you into being my avadim. Says the Shlah an amazing thing that we find that Avraham Avinu thought, Parshas Lech Lecha, that who would be his heir? Who would be the heir of Avraham Avinu? He said, Eliezer, right? He said, Uven Mesek Beisi, right? Who da Mesek Eliezer? Right? In other words, Avraham thought, who's going to be his inheritor? Who's going to be his heir apparent? Eliezer. Eliezer? Eliezer's not even a Yid. He's an Eved. He's an Urur. So how could Avraham think that who's going to be his heir apparent? Eliezer. Says the Shah, you know what the answer is? Because Avraham Avinu knew that what is the most important ingredient to being a faithful Yid? You have to know how to be an Eved. And who better than Eliezer, Eved Avram, to carry on the tradition? So Hashem said, no, lo yirash chazeh, not this Eved, I'm going to give you a real Eved, Yitzchak. But Avraham thought who's going to be his heir apparent? Eliezer, Eved Avram. Now listen to this, is Hafla V'Fela. Says the Shlah HaKadosh. You look throughout Tanakh, even after Klal Yisrael goes into Eretz Yisrael, you know what you call that land? Eretz Canaan. Eretz Canaan, we killed them out. They're not there anymore. Why would you call it Eretz Canaan? It's Eretz Yisrael. You want to call it Eretz Canaan before the Klal Yisrael gets there, fine. But after Klal Yisrael gets there, you're going to call it Eretz Canaan? Yes. Aror Canaan. Eved Avadim Yil Achiv. What's Canaan? Canaan's an Eved. What's Eretz Yisrael? A land of Avdos. That's why we call Eretz Yisrael Eretz Canaan. Because the word Canaan means Hachna, Avdos. Says the Shlah. Eretz Yisrael, now this is shocking. This is very relevant. The last two lines of the Shlah. We'll go back and read the beginning. Ve'ikar Mailas V'kiyam Haaretz. The attribute, the greatness of Eretz Yisrael, is only when you're an Eved Hashem. You're living in Eretz Yisrael as a Chavshi. You're not living in Eretz Yisrael. You're not living in the land. The land is Eretz Canaan. It's a land of Avdos. You go there, you better be ready to follow the rules of the land. It's part of the makeup of the land. That's the definition of the Eretz. It's an Eretz Canaan. It's an Eretz where you live as an Eved.
And there it says, להיות עם חופשי בארצנו.
Thank you. Exactly.
Exactly the opposite.
So Rabbi say, take a look at the Shlah HaKadosh. Beautiful words. Very powerful words.
How do you know to put this in the
very amazing, right?
It's amazing.
Look at number 9.
Wow.
We went down to Mitzrayim with 70 souls. We were purified there. We were slaves there. Hashem took us out of the slavery of Mitzrayim to be His slaves. By the way, you know, there are 2 mitzvahs aseh in the Torah that if you're mevatel the mitzvahs aseh, you chayiv kares. There are only 2 mitzvahs aseh: Pesach and Mila.
Yeah.
If you don't put on tefillin, you're not chayiv kares. You don't put on talis, you're not chayiv kares. Pesach and Mila. Why? Says Bnei Yisachar. If you have an Eved, so an Eved Kanani, you're Toivel. You have to be Toivel and Eved Kanani, L'Shem Geros. But maybe this Eved Kanani, when he's Toivel L'Shem Geros, he's going to think, you know what? I'll be Toivel L'Shem Cheros. I'll go into the mikveh having in mind, I'm going to be Toivel Zayin, I'm going to dunk, to go free. And the only way for the master to prevent the Eved from dunking to become free, and instead to dunk to become a faithful Eved Kanani, is that he puts his hand on the head of the Eved in the mikveh and shows authority over the Eved while he's dunking, so that the tefillah should be l'shem avdos and not l'shem cheros. Says Bnei Yisachar, when Klal Yisrael were in Mitzrayim, and Hashem is transitioning them out from being avadim to Pharaoh to becoming avadim to Hashem. What if a Yid says, you know what? Now that I'm going free from Parai, now I'm going free. Leos chafshi be'artzenu. Maybe I'm going free to be completely free. Maybe I'm going free to be free man. I don't need God either. I'm going free from power to become totally free. So therefore Hashem said, no, while you're going free, I'm going to exercise my authority over you with 2 mitzvahs that are like the head of the master on the Eved, to transition you from becoming Avdei Paro to Avdei Hashem. What are the 2 mitzvahs? What's the chain on the head of the Eved? Mila and Pesach. So says Bnei Yisachar, without Mila and Pesach, we don't belong to God. Because when we became free from Paro, we could have gone straight on vacation.
Why Pesach? Mila and
those are the 2 mitzvahs that he chose.
What Pesach have to do with the... Why Pesach? Mila, it's in your body.
For a different time. But the Bnei Yisachar says, why these 2 mitzvahs have such a strict punishment? Because these are the 2 mitzvahs that ushered us into becoming Avdei Hashem. Without these 2 mitzvahs, we would have gone free from Parai, free complete vacation.
This is the essence of Yahadut.
That's what kept are the chains upon us. So says the Shlach HaKadosh, here's the intent. This is a very amazing concept. This is a concept that is hard for us to accept in the year 2014, in Tafshin Ayin Daled, for a human being to understand, no, Judaism is beautiful, it's wonderful, it uplifts us, it's inspiring. Yes, 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 but that's not why we keep it. You know why we keep it? Because bottom line is we have a master and we're his avadim. We're his avadim. Because if you just keep because it makes you feel good, not every morning of the year is it going to make you feel good to schlep out to the minyan. Not every morning of the year is it going to make you feel good to keep your mouth closed when somebody says something to you. It's not always feel good. Not everything is going to make you feel warm and fluffy. Yes, it does sometimes make you feel warm and fluffy. But bottom line is Hashem is our Adon and we're his avadim, and that is prerequisite number one to keep the Torah. What he says. So Hashem says, I don't care, you fall down to the 49th level of Tumah, you serve Avodah Zarah, I'm giving you 400 years of training as an Eved. Ki ratza HaKadosh Baruch Hu la'abiyah b'libam. Hashem wanted to ingrain in our hearts inyan ha'avdos, the concept of slavery, lahargilam ba'avdos, kedei sheyeh lohem nokel achar kach la'avodas habar yisbarach, so that it should be easy afterwards to serve Hashem. Ulekayem ha'torah la'avdo l'shamra. In other words, if the alarm goes off, so you say, yeah, minyan, I love it, it's beautiful. But so is sleep. Sleep is also wonderful. It also makes me feel warm and fluffy, especially under my covers. Also, right? But if you know, the alarm goes off, yes sir! Right? You ever in the army? Imagine if the sergeant said, get up! You know, I'm not really feeling it today. I don't really feel, it's not really resonating in my heart today. Right? So the sergeant takes the other end of the gun, bam! So Hashem gave us 400 years of slave training. V'zeu she'amar, Anoichi Hashem lekecha asher tzesicha me'eretz Yisrael b'savad. Hashem didn't say, here are the mitzvos that are going to warm your heart. No. I'm Hashem. Remember where I took you from. Remember when the alarm went off and the Egyptian taskmaster woke you up at 5 o'clock in the morning? Now it's 6 o'clock. You could get up at 6 o'clock, right? Koloimar, Kedei Shetiyu Avadim. Bezeu she'ramaz Hashem Yisbarach li'Avram Avinu. Lo yirosh chazeh ki im asher yetzim mimeyecha. Says the Shloh, why did Abraham think that Eliezer was going to inherit him? Because Abraham knew the only way to continue Judaism, you need to be an Eved. And who better than Eliezer to inherit me? And now let me read to you the last couple lines. 8 lines on the end. V'zehu ha'inyan shenishar shem Kenan la'aretz ha'kedosha. That is why, that until today, you could call Eretz Yisrael Eretz Kenan. Even though the Jews took over the land, we still find the Tanakh it's called Canaan. Ela hakavana ki Canaan hu eved. Canaan was an eved. Or Canaan eved avodim yulachiv. Gam Canaan is lashon hachna. Says the Shlach. You need to frame these words. Vezehu kiyam haaretz shania avdei Hashem. You want to keep Eretz Yisrael. You want to keep it. That's what he said. I'm not making up these words. Kiyum Eretz Sheniya Avdei Hashem. Being on the land without Torah, you won't keep the land. Ukshe paraknu oil. If you throw off the yoke, v'lo yahayinu avadim loy. And you have who's living in Eretz Yisrael today? Who's leaving the land? The ones who live are the Shomer Torah. The ones who stay are the Shomer Torah mitzvahs. The ones who are not loyal to the Torah don't have real commitment to the land. They start to question, do we really need this land? It's a chesed l'Ribono shel Olam. It's a chesed. Because the only way to keep Eretz Yisrael is if you're avodim. That's the only way to keep the land. Azai avodim mashlu banu. Ve'ikar mailas v'kiyam ha'aretz hi b'yoseinu nechnoim va'avadim lai. The kiyam of Eretz Yisrael, the attribute, the greatness of Eretz Yisrael is only if it maintains its true identity of Eretz Canaan.
I don't think the secularists want to hear this.
No. All right, don't tell them about this, share.
Don't tell them.
What?
No, but it's very strong words here.
In other words, Canaan is so... him being an Eved is so ingrained in his identity. In other words, Canaan is the identity, is the pure personification of an Eved. He's such an Eved. He's Eved Avodim. Okay, that's what the Shlosh says. Rabbi Isai suggests the following. We asked, why is the first mitzvah the Rebbe Shalom teaches Klal Yisrael after he gives us the Torah, the mitzvah of freeing your Jewish slaves? So I think the answer is very simple. Because Hashem is about to give us 6:13. But before he gives us 6:13, he has to let us know what ingredient do we need to keep the Torah. Ingredient number one is, you are not an Adain. You are an Eved. You're an Eved. And if you have someone working for you, and you're going to keep on working him 6, 7, 8 years, you're going to think you're an Adain. He's going to think he's an Eved to you. So that's not just abandoning one little mitzvah in the Torah. It's abandoning the entire underpinnings of Yadus. The entire foundation of the Torah is, you're an Eved. Why do you think you were in Mitzrayim for 400 years? What did you do there? Well, you missed the boat? You think Hashem just wanted to make your life miserable for 400 years? He's teaching you how to be an Eved. So Tosfos says, you take what? Martseah. Martseah is the gematria of 400. You put it by his ear, you tell him, you missed the boat of the last 400 years of Mitzrayim. Hashem put you in Mitzrayim 400 years to learn how to be an Eved. And you obviously don't know who you're supposed to be an Eved to. You think you could be an Eved to anybody. You missed the boat. You lost the whole purpose of Mitzrayim. And that is why on the day Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, He made a covenant with the Jewish people. The Navi Yirmiyah says, you know what the covenant is? If you have a Jewish slave, you better free him. Why do you think this was such an important mitzvah for Hashem to teach Klal Yisrael the day we're leaving Mitzrayim? Because Hashem is trying to tell us, I'm taking you out of Mitzrayim, I'm taking you out of Avdus to transition you to be my Eved. And if you're going to keep your Jewish slaves as Avadim to you, you missed the boat. The whole bris, the whole covenant, the whole relationship between me and you is based on this Yesod. The Yesod is Avadayim. You are my Avadim. Rabbi Isai, we asked the Kasha. The Kasha was, if a guy steals, why don't we drill a hole in his ear? He also heard on Har Sinai, don't steal. If a guy wears shatnez, he also heard on Har Sinai, don't wear shatnez. If a guy speaks Soinas Dvarim, he also heard on Har Sinai Dvarim. You know what the answer is? A guy who speaks Soinas Dvarim, Hashem says, didn't you hear on Har Sinai, don't insult your friend? He'll say, oh, I was just spacing out for a minute. I missed that. He didn't hear. Hashem says, why'd you steal? Oh, I missed that one. I got confused. Hashem says, why'd you wear shatnez? I didn't hear that. But a guy who sells himself as an Eved, he's going to say, oh, Rebbeinu Shalom, I didn't hear you say the words, Ki li b'nei Savadim. The guy missed the entire Maimed Har Sinai. If Rebbeinu Shalom is standing there, and he's saying, Taryag mitzvahs, you could look at this, you can't look at that. You could eat this, you can't eat that. You could go here, you can't go there. You could go on 6 days, you can't go on the 7th day. All of those words, the 613 mitzvahs, proclaim loudly 3 words. Kili, B'nai Yisrael, 4 words. Avodim. In other words, you don't fulfill one isolated mitzvah, you miss the prat. You sell yourself as an Eved, you missed the entire Maimed Har Sinai. If you're standing there, and Rebbeinu Shalom is giving you 613 mitzvahs, and He's governing and dictating everything you do, what is the one clear message you're getting from the Rebbeinu Shalom? You forgot about that mitzvah, you forgot about this detail, but one thing you should have heard, and that is, Hashem is not just telling you a few things to do when you're in the mood. Hashem's not just giving you a few things to do when you have some free time. Hashem is telling you, you used to be Avadim to Pharaoh, you are now my Avadim. And if you sell yourself as a slave, you are undermining the entire message of Maimed Har Sinai.
Very interesting. You want one?
Yeah.
It sounds a bit like you said, the mindset of 2014 is difficult to accept.
Yeah, and this...
but it's also a different coin. He's our father.
He's our father, yeah.
So that's a different perspective.
Yeah, that's a more pleasant way to see it. Yeah, certainly that's a more pleasant way. We definitely, Hashem says, Banim atem Hashem leikecha. We're Hashem's children. But on the other hand, the foundation, the first step is that if you just do the mitzvahs because you're banim to Hashem, not every ben does every single thing that their father wants. What? I heard about it. I heard about such things. Not every. But when you have that ultimate responsibility, in other words, but we'll see. So Rabbi say, we had a kasha. Why do we take his ear? Because his ear. Why do we take, the doorpost and the door? Because the doorpost and the door were Eidim in Mitzrayim when Hashem jumped over the Jewish houses and said, Ki li b'nei Yisrael avadim. And we asked, that's not where Hashem said the words Ki li b'nei Yisrael avadim. That's a pasuk in Parshas Bahar. So you're telling me that a bas kol went out when Hashem jumped over the Jewish houses and said, Ki li b'nei Yisrael avadim? Just say one very simple thing. We find, this is an amazing point that Rav Shimon Schwab brings out, number 12. Parshas Vayigash, we have the entire economical plan of Yosef HaTzadik, where Yosef stores up food, and the Mitzrim come to Yosef, they say, Yosef, please give us food. So Yosef says, pay up. So they give Yosef the money. Year 1. Year 2, they come to Yosef. Say, Yosef, we have no more money. How are we going to get food? Yosef said, don't worry, just give me your cattle, give me your sheep, give me your cows. So they give the sheep, they give the cattle. Year 3, Yosef, we need food, we don't have money, we don't have cattle. So Yosef says, give me your land. So they give Yosef the land. Then they come to Yosef. Yosef, we have no money, we have no cattle, we have no land, but one thing we know, we need food. So Yosef says, no problem, what do you have? Ki'im gviyasenu. All we have is our bodies. Oh, so Yosef said, you'll become my slaves. Who cares? We need to know Yosef's whole economical plan for the land of Egypt. What? So that, for Jewish economics, so that when Mashiach comes, we could study exactly how to set up, an economical system for Eretz Yisrael. I mean, we need to know exactly all these pratim about how Yosef took money from the Egyptians. Says Reb Schwab, the Torah is teaching us something so basic. What does a human being do if someone gives them so much and they can't pay back with money, and they can't pay back with movables, and they can't pay back with real estate? What do you do? All you could do is, here is my guf now belongs to you. So when the Ribono Shel Olam bestows upon a person so much chesed, you could see, you could hear, digest food, your heart beats, your lungs are pumping. If a person, chas v'shalom, was missing an arm, how much money would you pay for an arm? All the money in the world. $1 million. $1 million. You have the arm. So you're already $1 million in debt to Ribono Shel Olam, right? You're already in debt, for starters. And if you calculate, just make, a basic economic assessment of the value of the benefits Hashem gives you, how much money would you pay? I guarantee you can make a list of at least 100 things that you would pay $1 million for. And we don't have that money. We don't have it. So how are you supposed to pay back to Ribono Shel Olam? There's only one way to pay back. Avadayim. Ribono Shel Olam, we don't have the money, we don't have the possessions. Ilu male pinu shira. In anachnu maspikim lahoydos lecha. We will not be able to thank you. Right? Me'achas elef alfei alafim v'rivei revaves hatoivos shasisa yimanu. Right? When the Mitzrim said to Yosef, Ki ofeis kesef, we have no more money left. So we come to Ribono Shel Olam, we say, Ma'ashiv Lashem, we have no money left. What can we give you? All we could give you is Ki'im Gviyasenu V'niyah Loi Yisbarach Avadim. Says Reb Shimon Schwab. We say in Shemona Esrei every day. We say, Kel Hagadol Hagibar V'hanora Kel Elyon. Goimel Chasadim Toivim V'kainei hakol. What do the words mean? V'kainei hakol. Kainei hakol. He bought everything.
Body and soul.
So 1 second. Hashem bought us. How much did He give us? How much did He pay us? What did He? How much does He pay? Cash, credit, American Express. What exactly? Hashem bought everything. Says Reb Shimon Schwab, and this is also brought down in the parish Eitz Yosef and the Siddur Eitz HaTfilos, also in Rav Miller's Sefer on Tefillah, Praise My Soul. Hashem bestows so much chesed on us that we can't pay Him back. There's nothing we could give Him back. It's just we're so indebted. B'kainei hakol. He thereby has acquired everybody as His avodim. You know why we're Avdei Hashem? Because Hashem has bestowed so much chesed on us that we have nothing to pay. Like, it says, Eved loive le'ish malveh. The loive, the borrower, is an Eved to the malveh. Why is the loive an Eved to the malveh? Because if the loive can't pay back, he's subjugated, he's subservient to the malveh. Or like we have, right, like Yosef HaTzadik says, Hine kanisa hayoim. Or the Mitzvim say to Yosef, Kenei oisanu v'niya anachnu v'ad masenu avodim leparoi. That's why Mitzrayim is base avodim. They were all avodim to Yosef. So, Rabbi, we'd like to suggest the following. When Hashem in Mitzrayim is jumping over the Jewish homes, right? He's jumping from Mohammed to Abdul, and he's jumping over Yankel's house. Did Rebbeinu Shalom say a word to Yankel? I would venture to say, no Baskal came out and said, Yankel! Kili b'nei Yisrael avodim. No, that's a pasuk in Parshas Bahar. Chazal don't mean that Hashem also said that in Parshas Bahar. But if Hashem is sparing Yankel, he's taken out Muhammad A, he's taken out Muhammad B, and he's sparing Yankel, what message should Yankel hear from that chesed that there's no way Yankel could ever pay back for? You know what Yankel should hear? Even though Rebbeinu Shalom did not say it, he should hear the words, Kili b'nei Yisrael avodim. That if Hashem selects somebody for special chesed, special kindness, Hashem doesn't have to say a word. Hashem doesn't have to say, you're my Eved. Yankel should just make one simple cheshbon. Hashem is wiping out everybody here. How much do I owe him for sparing me? $1 million. How much would Yankel pay to be spared? Yankel would pay every penny that he ever knew. But there's nothing he could pay the Rebbeinu Shalom. So what does Yankel hear when Hashem jumps over his house? I would venture to say Hashem never said the words Kili b'nei Yisrael avodim. But when a person is so overburdened with chesed, the message is there's only one way to pay back, and that is Kili b'nei Yisrael avodim. You become an Eved Hashem. So Rabbi say, what is the first mitzvah Hashem teaches Klal Yisrael after the giving of the Torah? Ki sikne Eved Ivri. You have to know who you are. You have to know. Of course, the mitzvahs we do me'ava. We do the mitzvahs out of love of Hashem, and we're banim l'Hashem, and Hashem is Avinu Shebashamayim. But bottom line, on the most fundamental level, everybody has to have a certain attitude. I'm an Eved. And when the alarm goes off, yes, sir. And when it comes time for mincha, yes, sir. And when it comes time to do a mitzvah, yes, sir, no matter what. Of course, we love it. And it's inspiring. And nothing, ashreinu ma'atayv chalkeinu ma'am garleinu. And certainly in this generation, we need to inspire ourselves and we need to connect with Rebbeinu Shalom bi'ava. But don't forget about the yisoid. The yisoid is Kili b'nei Yisrael avodim. That's the first mitzvah. That's the bris Hashem made when He took us out of Mitzrayim. That's the reason for Golus. And that is why Hashem says, if you sell yourself as an Eved, you get your ears pierced. Not because you missed an isolated pasuk, you missed the purpose of everything. Rabbi Shai, have a wonderful day.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.